You are tuned into Tea Time with J&J. The J&J is JJ Pershing and Jocelyn Goins. We are so excited to share your time and have you spend your time with us, whether it's for a few minutes or the entire show. We really appreciate it. Several things to talk about today. Happy Father's Day to all of the fathers, father figures, soon-to-be fathers, and anyone else that is serving in some sort of mentor or role where you're guiding other folks. I think that's very important. It's a very important job. So thank you for listening. We're going to do our weekly news recap. We have some mental health conversation like we always do. And because it's Father's Day, we want to sort of center that conversation around men and mental health. And we'll see how that conversation goes. And then we have always our what I talked to my chat GPT about this week. And it was a lot. It was a lot. Yeah, our relationship is really developing. And so that will be a lot of fun, I hope. But let's say hey to my co-host. What's good?
So much has happened since the last time
I
was on here.
It's been 2 weeks.
It's been 2 weeks
since we saw each other.
Yes.
At this place. And you've got a cast on your arm.
It's been crazy. I've been telling everybody because sometimes I'm still shy to tell everyone that I skate. And they're like, oh, roller skate, ice skate. It's like, no, skateboard. And they're like, well, we're trying to push. And I'm like, guys, no, I'm a good skater, I promise. So to avoid that whole conversation, what I've been telling people is I was trying to save the zebra out in Nashville. And in the mix of all this, it kicks me and breaks my arm. And everyone just starts dying. That's it. I just leave it at that. They're like, no, what really happened? I'm like, I'm telling you. I was out in Nashville. So that's been my story. But I fractured my elbow, and recovery is 6 to 8 weeks. And I'm just trying to stay busy. You know, staying busy with real estate has been pretty easy because a lot of it's on my phone and computer, and I'm right-armed, and I broke my right elbow, right? So I'm trying to left hand everything. So I'm a little bit slow, you know, typing emails because I gotta like do like one by one. But it keeps me busy. But I can't figure out like workout wise or to keep myself fit. I can't go on my runs anymore. I can't skateboard, obviously. I can't go golf. I can't really do a lot of workouts. So I'm like, the Stairmaster is really my only option right now.
Running with one arm is difficult.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be too much like jumping in a way.
Okay, too much impact.
Yeah.
Impact sort of on that bone.
Exactly.
Just the kind of residual.
So I've been going on walks, long walks, which is nice. But
well, that sounds peaceful and cathartic.
Yes. But what have you been up to?
Not a whole lot. Same sort of stuff. Taking care of my plants always. And I have 19 container plants right now. I brought you plants and flowers. So my roses, my hydrangeas are doing beautifully. I put in soil acidifier mixed it in with the topsoil of my hydrangea in order to turn the blooms from pink to blue.
What?
So the more acidic the soil, and you also need to make sure that you're using water that doesn't, like the pH of the water doesn't counteract the acid in the soil. And so you can buy soil acidifier that will turn your hydrangeas purple or blue, the blooms on them, versus you can also buy whatever the opposite end of that spectrum is, right? Mm-hmm. It's either too acidic or it's too not basic. I don't know. I can't think of the word. But depending on the pH or whatever, you can go the other way and turn your blue hydrangeas pink.
I did not know that. I thought there's just 2 different kinds of flowers and you just hope that you got the color that you want. There's just no talent. It's a surprise.
Well, and there are white ones and a variety of different pink hues.
Yeah.
And purple and blue to be sure. And when I first bought the hydrangea a year ago, and I bought it from Ellenberg up in where you and I went that day.
Yeah.
And a couple of my other rose bushes that are so hardy and so beautiful. I'm so excited about them. But that's where I got the hydrangea, and I bought it, and it was blue. Well, I noticed this year I replanted it in a bigger container with new dirt, fresh fertilizer, flower, food. And when the little blooms started coming in and, starting to open up, we've had all this rain, which is lovely. Hydrangeas they love water, and they love a lot of sun, but they also need some shade. And so they're not temperamental at all, but it's just you kind of gotta. But anyhow, I saw the blooms opening up. I saw that they were pink, and I thought, oh, my soil, I need to fix that. So ChatGPT and I talked through that. And then the other conundrum that I'm having right now is my habanero plants. I've had habaneros in the past, and they've grown. They've just flourished. I put them in a bigger pot this year. And I've got 2 sizable habanero plants, and they're growing, but the leaves are more lime green than like dark green. And I'm thinking it's because, and they're not producing peppers as quickly as like my bell pepper plants, as my Tabasco peppers, as my sweet peppers. And I'm thinking it's because 2 things. Maybe the container that I planted them in, it's a very big one, but maybe the water is all sort of settling to the bottom, and it's not getting up to, second thing, the soil. I don't think the soil is probably more of that mulchy kind of soil with the big pieces of bark and different stuff in it, that organic soil. And I've been seeing a lot of mushrooms. I was talking to Megan, the DJ that's usually here on Sundays from 8 to 10 doing mornings. She works at Stanley's greenhouse, and she was saying it could be the soil, if and we were talking about mushrooms, and she said I wouldn't worry about the mushrooms so much. That just means that the soil is sort of fertile and has got nutrients and stuff in it. It's very dense, but I don't think it's soaking up. I don't think there's enough of that kind of
consistency.
In the soil.
Interesting.
So I'm going to replant it this weekend, potentially today, but soon. I need to redo it. And with all this water that we're getting, though, I mean, it should be.
That's true. We have been getting a lot of water. Is it sitting outside or? Yeah. Huh.
They all get a lot of sun, and I rotate them and things like that. So they all kind of get, and you have to keep them a certain distance away from each other or whatever, because if they feel like too confined, they're not going to grow out.
Yeah.
Right? So they need space to reach out.
You inspired me so when I came back from my trip, Janelle picked me up. She dropped me off. She was super helpful. So I get home and I fall asleep and I wake up and then I check on the bunnies and they're doing good. And then I look outside and I'm like, oh, my plant. And so I went out and you could start seeing that it started to wither because it wasn't getting any water.
Right. And you had been gone almost a week.
I was gone almost a week. And that whole week was like the only week it did not rain.
Why didn't I think to water your plants for you?
I didn't think about it either. So when I went out there, I was like, no. I was doing so good. I need to impress Janelle. So I started watering it again consistently. And I started plucking some of like the dead leaves off.
Yes.
And it's already doing so much better and it's coming back alive. So I was like,
I love it.
I need to share this with Janelle. She'll be proud of me.
I have so much basil. I have 4 or 5 basil plants because they're good companion plants with flowers and with peppers. And so I have so much basil that I'm just like, I can only eat so much spaghetti sauce. What else? What else am I going to put all this basil in? I got to find some other recipes. It smells so delicious, though. But And so, yeah.
Yeah, that
Well,
made me
that's really
think
cool.
of you. I was like, Janelle will be proud of me because
I am so proud.
the only
I
baseball
am
plant
so
I've
proud.
ever owned lasted 2 days, and this one's going on. How long has it been?
It's been over a month. You're doing tremendous. Tremendous. Jocelyn, I'm so proud. Okay. So today is Father's Day, which is awesome for some, and I think others, for the longest time, having not grown up with a dad, right? I come from a single mom household, and she worked way too many jobs and way too many hours to try to provide for 2 kids and 2 ornery little kids, right? No, we were perfect angels. What are we talking about? But we didn't have that dad. We didn't have our dad in the picture. We had a granddad that was the role model, the male figure, the patriarch of the family type thing. And he was wonderful. He taught us how to fish, how to ride bikes, like all the things that typically would be associated with dads. But anyhow, for the longest time, for many years, Father's Day would come around and I would think, kind of poo-poo Father's Day altogether,
Yeah.
And I think there were a couple years where I maybe bought my mom a Father's Day card and just recognized the fact that she was having to be the mother and the father, kind of all at once. And from the day to day, yeah, Grandpa was there, but 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, man, parenting doesn't end. And so I appreciated her for that. And then there were a lot of years where I bought my grandpa a Father's Day card, or especially on Grandfather's Day, would write him just lovely messages about how much I appreciated his input and influence on my life. And so now that I'm married, we've got these 2 teenage boys, my stepsons, and I have this wonderful husband who was such a present and devoted man and father and husband. I mean, I lucked out. And my friend Pat always tells me, well, you're lucky to have him, but remember, he's lucky to have you. Aww. Well, of course. I mean, that goes without saying. But it's like Father's Day is a joy again. It's like something to be celebrated.
Oh, that's good.
But my husband is not the type to, he's like my grandpa, he's more like Father's Day is every day. Mother's Day is every day. You know what I mean? You should you should tell your father or your mother or, whatever, obey them all the time or tell them that you appreciate them all the time. Yeah. Don't just wait for this one day a year or what have you.
Yeah.
But like a typical American, I love a holiday, right?
Anything to celebrate, anything to grab a drink, right?
I can't get past it. And so I've tried to limit my spending and limit my verve for these just offhanded holidays or whatever around him. But doing some research for today's show, it has been said that $22.4 billion is projected to be spent on Father's Day or around Father's Day.
Yeah.
And I asked ChatGPT, and I said, okay, of that 22.4 billion, how much is that just like end user, like consumer, retail, whatever, or is that manufacturing all of the junk, all of the cards and all of the whatever gifts and stuff that are sold for Father's Day? And it's not. It is absolutely just point of sale.
Wow.
$22.4 billion.
I don't have anything to say. That's insane.
It's insane.
That's
insane. And
insane.
it's insane in the perspective. So of course I take snippets like this and put them in line with other events that are happening. In our news recap, I kind of wanted to talk about the parade yesterday, the military parade, 250th birthday of the Army, the protests that were happening around the country. And I wanted to distinguish between the protesters not there to look down on or point their finger at the Army or the 250th celebration of the Army, that's wonderful. But more so the administration and the fact that we've got all this money for parades, but we don't have money for Medicaid. You know, they're continuing to cut Medicaid, Medicare, firing federal employees, all of these things, waste, quote unquote, waste, government waste, right?
Right.
And I'm thinking, okay, meanwhile, we're spending we're concerned about, $45 million for a parade, America. Conversely, we're spending $22.4 billion on Father's Day gifts.
Yeah.
Maybe we should just direct some of our spending toward our father's medical bills. Or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mean to be trite or
No.
or whatever. It just it's one of those things. And now I was doing another deep dive, ChatGPT, that 40 million or 30 to 60 million or whatever they're saying the parade costs, 45 million, is equivalent to, as part of the budget, the overall budget, like our however much $1 trillion budget, federal budget, is 0.001%. So I'm thinking, I feel certain there are other places completely aside from the parade. Put the parade on one burner, right? And on another burner, look at the fact that Medicaid is being cut. What else in that federal budget I'm sure there's other waste, office supplies potentially. I mean, how much does the White House spend on office supplies? Maybe they buy less sticky notes. Maybe they buy,
Right.
How many reams of paper? How many reports or things are they printing out to disseminate when it could be electronic or something? I'm sure there are other ways that administration could save the money that they're yanking from Medicaid if they wanted to. But clearly they don't want to. Clearly they don't want to look for that. So, but I think that as we look at spending, our own spending and government spending, we need to not blur the lines of, well, he's spending money on this when he could have spent this. Well, that's completely separate. I think it was good that we celebrated the military. I think we have the best military in the entire world, and that's not my opinion. That is fact by the numbers, right? And I think at this point in time, with all these other countries so angry at us and all this dissension among countries, I think it's important, and people are saying that we're on the brink of World War III. People are projecting, a couple years from now, 3 years from now. Other people are saying inside of 6 months. I'm thinking, okay, this is causing me anxiety, which will lead to our mental health conversation. But it's like, okay, if we are that close to another world war, I definitely think that it's important to showcase the might and the appreciation for our armed services.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's my 2 cents.
I don't know. I agree. We need to celebrate the people who put their lives up for risk. They're doing it for their families, but also for people who they don't know, just for the American people. And I think that's insane to think about. I don't go all crazy and thinking that World War III will ever happen. I think negotiations will just continue to go through. I like to stay positive, because if I think that World War III is going to come, I'm just going to go find myself a bunker right now. Right. So I'd like to stay positive, and like you said, we do have one of the better militaries in the world, so I can't imagine that happening. I think we're in 2025. I think war is overrated, and I think get into a thumb war, with both presidents and whoever won the thumb war. That's how deals will get negotiated, Like, I don't know, rock, paper, scissors it, if that's really what you need to do. But to when I think of two people, you and me, if you and I are arguing, and I'm sending my family to kill your family and your family to kill my family, you and I are the ones who have an issue, right?
Right.
And to be killing innocent people, whether you're in the military or not, I think that's unacceptable. It's unethical. And I think war should be, it's 2025. I think it's should be completely taken out. I think negotiations is speaking face to face and just trying to figure out things. You know, things do take time. Don't get impatient. I think eventually you'll come to a solution that both parties will be happy in the end. And that's that. But besides from just like the Americans spending $22 billion in Father's Day.
And it's just Father's Day. That's not even like Christmas or.
I was gonna say for Christmas.
You know.
I wonder how much was for Mother's Day. Which one's the favorite?
We should ask. I'll report on that next week. We only have you for another 45 minutes or so. You need to get out the door and get to work, and so I want to be respectful of the time that I have with you today. So I might wait until, I'm wondering if I should wait until the end of the program after you've left to do the news recap. I could do that on my own.
Yeah, you can do that.
So I'm thinking I'll skip past that and we'll go on to some, and I've got some sports news and other things like that. So we can skip ahead. You saw the book that I brought today. It's a number one New York Times bestseller. The Body Keeps the Score: Brain, Mind, and Body in the Healing of Trauma. Bessel van der Kolk, MD, medical doctor, is the author of this book, and it from what I've read so far. Now I'm on chapter 9. From what I've read so far, obviously there's a lot of American Psychiatric Journal. Like there's a lot of research that was done, and it speaks about a lot of studies and academic research and things like that. So I think it's not one person's opinion. I mean, it's a very thorough book.
Yeah.
And essentially help me kind of set it up for our listeners. And I don't remember quite what I was listening to that got me thinking, oh, I need to buy this book. But it was something about how our trauma, mental trauma, anxiety, depression, all of these things swimming around in our heads impacts our entire body's physiology, the way all of our systems work together in our body. The way, and not just only the way we deal with stress or things like that, but physical ailments, right? Obesity, alcoholism, addiction, other things can all be attributed back to some sort of trauma that we have not dealt with.
Yeah.
Or are dealing with, or are coping with in some way that may not be the best way.
Yeah, I think that's a lovely book. When I saw that, I was like, Janelle, you picked the best book. I read that one, or going to read that one, and Atomic Habits, and those two have been my favorite books. But I think it's huge because every single person has gone through something in their childhood that still sticks with us to this day. And it's something that's so hard for one to talk about. You know, whatever's going up in your head, you don't think you can speak about it because you think it's going to be like a weakness, right? You know, physically, I am hurt right now. Everyone can tell. Everyone's checking up on me. And I'm like, that's so sweet. You know,
yes.
Everyone cares. But when something's going
you're
on.
You're hurt on the outside, but when you're hurt on the inside.
One, nobody knows to check up on you, and it's really hard to open up yourself and ask for that help because it makes you feel vulnerable, and maybe even, especially for men, like a weakness, right? Like, dude, who cares what's going on up there? You know, you're doing good, you know, and that feeling just keeps getting pushed to the side, and it affects families, friends, your relationships, and I think it's a huge thing. It's a good topic to talk about and to spread awareness about because no one talks about it. And I think that's harder. There's this Instagram an Instagram that I follow, and it's called Happiness Project. Long story short, it's three friends, and in high school or middle school, one of their friends committed suicide. And since that day, these two other friends have built a brand to spread awareness, mental health awareness, to try to speak out to everyone out there saying, hey, we've lost someone. We want you to know that you are heard and you can speak up. Mental health is important to talk about, and to reach out to someone because you're not alone. And I think I love the brand. I'm actually wearing the bracelets right now. One says you matter. The other one says what? Mental health is health.
Is health.
It's important.
Well, and in this book, a couple things that I picked out just immediately, and especially around today's topic of men's mental health, was this quote: people universally feel ashamed about the trauma they've experienced.
Yeah.
And like you said, men are taught, I think still today, even truer with previous generations, men were raised to be tough, to be the leaders of their family, to put on a brave face.
Yeah.
Not show weakness, not show emotion. Crying is for sissies, sort of mentality. And I see it in men everywhere that I know. And strong fathers, whomever, and men of all ages. And so I think it is tougher for men to get help. I also think, or to ask for help, right?
Yeah.
I think that's just not part of their sort of intrinsic thought process to ask for help. Women are typically seen as the ones that the more the emotional, the nurturers, the need to have conversations about things, whereas men will just sort of try to logicize it in their brain.
Yeah.
And one of the other stigmas around mental health assistance and psychiatry and psychology and social work is that if you put a label on something, if okay, well, what if I go to a psychiatrist and I tell them all about my childhood and they're like, oh, well, it's your mother's fault. There's that sort of thing. I don't want this being some sort of thing that I take in my relationship with my mother. Or what if they call me bipolar? Or what if, borderline personality disorder? They put some sort of label on me, and suddenly that becomes part of my psyche and part of who I am.
Yeah.
And that's really scary. And men, being men, typically, as we know them, not to generalize, but as we know men to be strong and, self and just logical and so on, they're gonna time out anything that's going to label them in some sort of negative light. Come on. Why are we gonna do that?
Right. Like you said, they need to have an image that they're strong and stable and can take care of the family, and to show that that's a part of the weakness side of them. And that's hard for them to do and try to ask for help for, go to help for, and make it known that they're going to therapy or whatever. And I think it's so important, especially when you're raising a family. Someone, you unfortunately grew up without a dad, and I grew up with one, but he did go through a lot through his childhood, and he used alcoholism to kind of hide and push that pain further and further
to cope
down.
with his trauma.
But that affected me, affected the rest of the family, and
created traumatic situations and experiences for you and your siblings because of his coping mechanisms or lack of ability to cope or get help.
Yeah, and I totally understand how hard it could be to talk about it, but it's so important to find someone that you trust, whether it's your best friends or ChatGPT or professional therapy. I think it's very important for you to talk about.
Well, and there were a couple statistics I pulled that I noted in this book, as well as the research. Men are 3 to 4 times more likely to die by suicide than women. that was reported in the CDC from the CDC 2023. Only 1 in 3 men who struggle with mental health will seek professional help. And 70% of men report they feel pressure to be emotionally strong and avoid appearing vulnerable. That's from the American Psychological Association. So yeah, childhood trauma, absentee fathers, alcoholic homes strongly correlate with adult anxiety, boundary issues, and people-pleasing behaviors. So that's what leads to... So you and I both deal with anxiety and have dealt with sort of depression and, well, not sort of, I mean, depression, it can be embarrassing and sort of self-conscious.
Yeah.
To point out.
Yeah. It is hard.
Our mental health, hiccups or whatever, soft spots or whatever.
Right.
And it's and I think for our parents too, I mean, for my mom, trying to talk about it to my mom or trying to talk about it to the parent that raised you, or even the parent that you feel like maybe,
right,
was
the one that was causing.
Yeah, that was maybe causing some of your trauma. Talking to that person or talking to an abuser. I mean, not even maybe, in child neglect and child abuse, child sexual abuse. There are a lot of studies done that recognize that more than a quarter of Americans have been abused in some manner as a child.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you look at that in terms of the numbers or in groups of, say, 25,000 people, they say, okay, well, this many have dealt with at least full-blown sort of abuse type thing, 25%. Well, the majority, 75%, have had some sort of traumatic experience, being yelled at or cussed at or, whatever by a parent, or at some point in their lives have felt like there was no one there to sort of support them at some point. You realize that it's an epidemic. It's as bad as mental health, and trauma is as bad as cigarette smoking or cancer or, some of these others that we put all of this money into and research into, helping people wean themselves off of smoking, helping cancer research and curing cancer. But when it came down to sort of labeling or naming in, there's that medical book, the DSM-3. It's the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. And essentially what that is any sort of PTSD, trauma or whatever. That is what psychiatrists, psychologists, practitioners use in order to come up with diagnoses that they can write prescriptions for, or write, what's the word? Just ways to help. They write that insurance will pay. Insurance pays based off of the diagnoses in the DSM-3.
Got it.
And so if you don't have something that can be labeled via the DSM-3, then your insurance is likely not going to cover the treatment for it. The treatment is what I was looking for. And so when it comes to PTSD and child abuse and child sexual abuse, these researchers, primary investigators on some of these studies wanted to get PTSD from child abuse trauma, put into the DSM-3 in its own classification. And no matter how much research they did or how many studies that prove this is an epidemic level sort of thing, the committee that decides those things for the DSM-3 opted not to make it its own category. And so that's something that I'm reading in this book that I thought was nuts, right? And it all goes back to if we can't talk about it, if clinicians are not able to diagnose it, insurance companies are not going to pay for treatment for it. We're just going to sweep it under the rug, and pretend that it's not the epidemic in America that it is. Well, of course, more people are not going to just come forward to talk about it, to talk about their trauma.
Yeah. And I think denying it, I mean, I'm not a huge like taking medicine for mental illnesses. If something has happened to you, so I'm kind of, there's both pros and cons, like you said. Like the con side of it is a lot of people are not going to open up because of it, right? The pro, which is a harder pro to push because it's harder for you to talk about it, is that when you have PTSD, it's due to because you had something happen to you in your childhood. And I think the only way for you to completely feel normal, I guess, or to grow from that is to talk about it.
Yes.
And meet with a professional, and they're going to walk you through all the feelings and how to heal from your past wounds. I think taking medicine only keeps pushing that feeling down further and just help you get that like a dopamine. You know, I don't know. That's a hard conversation to have. And
I think, yeah, and it varies by person. I do think there are chemical imbalances throughout your body that can be adjusted through prescribed medication.
Yeah.
Right. Just like taking, why is it you take Tylenol and suddenly your arm isn't throbbing? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's some sort of chemical reaction going on there that is helping.
Right.
But is it helping, or is you know, in some cases like with schizophrenia or certain things, medications are sort of necessitous.
Yes.
But they do have other side effects and
yeah, it's medication. I think that's a hard one to push because again, you have to also decipher, do they need medication or do they need therapy, or do they need both?
Right.
I think that's kind of a hard one for scientists to really look into and try to figure out which one they need. And I think, again, going back to the Happiness Project, they did a research saying that mental illness is the number one illness worldwide that's killing the most people. And number 2 is cancer. So,
yes.
and I think that's huge. I think it's huge. And I think a lot of people should be taught in schools, potentially. Maybe, you know how you have art class? There should be some type of like mental awareness where you read this book because this book is very scientific based, and maybe you teach it in science, but something that, you know, kids growing up, because we all were kids once, right? In middle school or high school, where it's just saying, hey, we know things are happening to you at home because it happens to everybody. We want to just say out loud and clear that it's okay. We all know you're going through something. We don't know what it is, but it's okay to talk about it and try to solve the problem at hand while you're growing up, because the longer you wait, the more it gets pushed down. And I think that's why, you know, fathers have such a hard time to talk about it, because they hid it so long and they're doing fine. You know, they're living a normal life, you know, so why face it now? It only gets harder and harder as time goes on. And I wish they would speak up, you know, and it's hard. It's not easy. You know, I say that, but it's so hard, you know, for anyone, male, female, whatever. It's hard as people, as humans, to speak up about something that's been going on for so long in your life that you've hid for a very long time.
Yes. Well, and finding somebody that you can trust with that is hard. If you're sort of predisposed to not to being distrustful of people and not sharing and being sort of stoic in your demeanor, you know, you can't just flip a switch on that and suddenly be, oh, yeah, I think I want to talk about it today or whatever. And so I think it's friends and family. If you know of if you have somebody in your family that you feel like needs to talk or whatever, I don't know, maybe help them. Yeah. Like you said, just help guide them to maybe reading or research or Instagram pages or journaling or just something. Yeah, ChatGPT or something where they can look it up for themselves. And I feel like there's still a lot of households that liken emotions and liken men and talking about emotions with homosexuality or with being soft,
Right.
or like it's completely frowned upon, right? And so that's where you have to just sort of realize, look, I'm strapped with this family for life. I mean, I'm always going to be connected to these people that don't see things the right way or the way that I'd like them to see it or whatever. But I can be true to myself, and I can seek out friends and confidants and mentors and people in my life that I can trust and that can be trusted to hold those secrets or hold some information or hold some space for me to be open about what I'm dealing with.
It's such a hard thing to just start.
It's awful. And it's abusive relationships, or I mean, it's like if you don't get, if you don't know better, you can't do better type thing. And it's just like the snowball effect, or like the wheel that keeps on turning. You were abused, and so you become the abuser, and then you create somebody that's been abused, and then they become the abuser, and it just goes on and on. And so, yeah, at some point we need to just say,
you don't want that for your future family.
Yeah.
You don't want to be retired and seeing that your son is doing the same thing to your grandchild, his now son, and continuing down that line. It's hard to watch, it's hard to speak about. So I think ChatGPT, even just talking through your feelings through there. And I know there's also some online therapists where you don't need to meet them. They don't meet you. So if that's very hard for you, like, what if they put a label on me? They never meet you. You can just hop on a phone call and just speak about it, and you'll never talk to them or speak to them again. And it kind of helps you at least get that foot through the door on, okay, actually
opening up a little bit.
And then trying to move on from there on, okay, maybe the next step is to actually talk to a family member or a friend member, because it kind of helps break that barrier and that wall that you set.
And I've got to admit something that I do.
Sure.
We'll admit it like it's a big secret, but it's just sort of.
Like, Janelle, I'm interested.
It's almost like a mnemonic device, but in my phone favorite contacts, right?
Mm-hmm.
How you have your favorites. You can just click the little button into your favorites, and the top 10 people that you call all the time are right there. Boom, boom, boom. Well, and you would think that I might have my husband or my best friend or my mom first or whatever. And there's like a hierarchy, right? Okay. But first and foremost on my list, my number one name in my favorites is actually my therapist. Her name was Juanette. She passed away. She died, unfortunately, in 2020. Mm-hmm. And just several months after my grandmother. And it was hard for me when my grandmother died, and then it was hard for me when my therapist died. She'd been my therapist for many years, but she had she helped me through. She helped me with so much self-actualization and understanding the importance of boundary setting and this people-pleasing behavior that I had, and that sometimes seeps into my, whatever, subconscious type thing. But I would not be with my husband today. I would not have the life I have today had it not been for her help and the work and it was work. Yeah. It wasn't easy.
No.
To look at yourself and to look at yourself in the mirror and say, I am the crazy one in this scenario. I am being the one that's too much or too whatever the case may be. And whether it's because of childhood trauma or whether it's because, of whatever trauma I've dealt with, I need to fix it. Yeah. Right? Because continuing on this path is insanity.
Yeah.
And so those sorts of lessons that I learned from her, man, are just are paramount to living this happy, healthy life that I have. And so that's why she's number one on my phone list, because
Aw.
anytime I go to call any of my top people or whomever, she's there at the top of the list. And I think, what would Juanette do? Right? WWWD. What would Juanette do? What would Wani do? And so it's just my sort of my
Aw.
snap of a finger, like
Yeah.
remember your P's and Q's. You know what I mean? Remember, never forget the lessons that you learned. Never forget that you don't have to take back what you don't say,
Yeah.
or any of the other lessons that she taught me.
That is awesome.
So
I really like that.
So I think we all can have our sort of mnemonic devices or different things that we can do. And whether it's journaling or whether, whatever it is, that one person that we talk to or that whatever, when we get, sometimes I have anxious, I get anxious spells of all these things that I have going on in my head and in my life and whatever, and these people that I'm taking care of and work and bills and so on. I mean, I can drive myself, if I wanted to, into just a panic attack, just a full-blown sit in the corner in the dark, sort of what is going on in my world. Am I having like a mental breakdown, sort of panic attack or whatever?
Yeah.
So I feel like you can relate to that. And so it's being able to work through those things and being able to have that positive self-talk and think things through so you don't ever get to that do or die sort of point.
Yeah. One of my favorite quotes that I read, and I go on Pinterest, my little secret thing is I go on Pinterest and I look up affirmations and I just scroll and I just read every single one. And the one that I still really like is, it's okay to not be okay. Everyone's taught, especially when you're on social media, you see everyone's smiling and laughing and doing all these crazy things and out traveling. Like, they're consistently happy. You don't see that negative side on, like, them feeling depressed or whatever, right? They're making sad or mad or anything like that. And so you're taught by society that you always have to be okay, but that's not true. It's okay to not be okay because it's normal. We're human. We're going to feel those emotions. And it's very important, again, to vocalize it. So that's one of my favorite quotes is, it's okay to not be okay.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I like it.
What other mechanisms do you have, or do you ever get in those situations where you feel anxious or just especially vulnerable, or I guess what is it that and we talked about this on a previous show, and you opened up, but I feel like there's a lot that we left on the table that you could talk about, and so we can unpack that, as they say, in weeks to come. We can lean in.
There we go. Tea time with JJ.
Lean in on those feelings. But with the time that we have left or whatever, I do want to spend some time talking about how you kind of deal with the trauma that you dealt with.
Yeah, and that could last. I could talk about it for hours, days, and to try to put it in short, I mean, when I was I'll start with when I was really depressed, and I'll speak about what I do now. When I was depressed, and I was depressed for many years, and I didn't see any positive, right? I spoke about, like, I couldn't smile, I couldn't genuinely laugh, and I actually did not see color in the world. I thought I was going colorblind. And so I was really, really, really deep in this depression. And
when you say many years, I do want to put a little bit of context on it. Many years from when you were an older child into teenage years and into early adulthood.
Yeah. So I want to say it was probably between the ages of 10 to maybe like 16, 17 years old. So 6 to 7 years where I consistently felt this no happiness, and that's a long time, especially when you're that young, 10 years old,
Yes.
looking back at it. And I see other 10-year-olds. I'm like, I can't believe I felt like that when I was their age. And that's really hard because it went through my childhood and I was put at the responsibility of being the mother. So I raised all of my siblings at that young age. And so that's the only reason why I continued to wake up is because I knew I had to be there for my siblings. But then I also had to start thinking about I need to be there for myself. And again, I don't know, Pinterest saved my life. I would continuously see on Instagram and all that that people are happy. People were generally smiling. I was meeting people like that. And I just thought to myself, like, I wish I could feel that feeling, And I read a quote that said something like, if they can do it, you can do it. So I'm like, okay, if that's true, then how do I get there? Because I'm young, at that age. I was young and I was like, I don't want to feel this for the rest of my life. I only live this life once. I do not want to be feeling like this for any longer than I already have. So I just started reading affirmations. I've tried talking to people, as I said in the previous episode, that I tried talking to someone and they both turned me down, and that was hard because I finally built up the confidence to speak to someone about it, and they kind of pushed that feeling down further.
Who were these people? Like other adults in your life?
So I just tried speaking with my father. He was the biggest reason that was causing this trauma, and he, to put it in short, didn't listen the whole time. I told him that his alcoholism was hurting me. And so once our conversation was done, he hugged me and he went over, grabbed 5 beers and went outside and came back and drunk right away.
I remember you talking about that. And where was your mother at this point?
She was never home. She was never home because she was also trying to hide from my father. So she would pick up extra shifts. She was also consistently working. My dad was unemployed, so she had to keep the bills running. And anytime that she had to get off early, she would go to a friend's house to kind of, again, stay away from my dad's atmosphere and abuse and all that.
So she's got her own trauma because she knew she was sort of putting her kids in the crosshairs of this.
Yeah. Yeah. And she also had to protect herself too.
And hoping that, and she had to what?
She had to protect herself too.
Yeah. She had to protect herself, but at the risk of her kids, or hoping that he wouldn't do anything to the kids, that hoping she was the one that he would take his aggression out on, or what have you.
And that just put me in a mother position where I had to do everything. Again, my dad was consistently drunk and unemployed. He just sat on the couch all day, so I had to keep the house moving. I had to help my siblings with homework. I made lunch, breakfast, dinner, all of that. When they're fighting, I had to stop. I'm like, stop fighting, guys, please, especially when they're young. Oh my gosh, they went at it.
How old were they?
They were young. I guess it really depends on how old I was because that's such a long gap between me being 10 years old to
like
17.
When you were 10 or 12 or 10 or 14, like your sibs were?
My sister's 2.5 years younger.
Okay.
My next brother is, I think he's currently 13 years old. So how?
He would have been just
he was
little.
A baby. Yeah, and then Colton, the youngest, he was also very little. But long story short, I tried speaking with my father about it. That didn't go well. And so, like, the following week, I tried talking to my best friend. And she was going through her own stuff, and I don't blame her at all. But she got angry at me when I told her how I was feeling. And she just said, why would you tell me this? I'm going through my own stuff. You can deal with it on your own. And that hurt me. I'm like, I'm finally building this confidence to finally tell someone, and no one was helping me. So,
and looking back, I mean, her answer was probably,
I don't know what she was going through.
I don't know what she was going through, but it was obvious. It was obviously she was going clearly.
She was going
through something that just she didn't have the bandwidth to.
The mental space.
I mean, if this was your best friend, like similar age or whatever, I mean, she really didn't have the emotional bandwidth to help you with yours.
No.
But it would have been usually, your best friend. I mean, even just the conversation, it would have been super helpful.
No.
Thank you. But that is,
That's
like
hard.
I was reading in this book, like these situations that these people have been put into where they had at critical ages in their development, child development.
Yeah.
They had no one that they felt was there for them for safety or to,
for any reason.
to any sort of support.
Yeah.
But you were meanwhile, so there's no one there for you, you're feeling like, but meanwhile, you are ensuring that you are the person that's there for your younger siblings.
Yeah.
So you're just like, it's like pouring from an empty cup.
Yeah.
Joss, I hate that.
It was hard because I knew how I was feeling for so long. I wanted to make sure my siblings never felt that way. That was my biggest goal. So anytime my father would get into one of those moods or start drinking, I would hide them in my room. With them being kids, they're like, I get to go in my older sister's room. This is so cool. And they were so happy to go in my room. I'm like, good, go in there. I don't know touch anything, touch everything, whatever, jump on my bed. They're at that age where they think that's cool, right? Big sister's bedroom. You're not allowed in, but she's letting us in now. What? The way I was able to start the process is I was consistently speaking negative thoughts to myself. Right? I did not feel any positive. I didn't hear anything positive. So seeing people happy, I started going on Pinterest, Google, and I started reading affirmations. Now, when I say that, and something I recently learned is, you hear the affirmation that I am beautiful. Right? You want to say that to yourself. You think that's silly?
You is kind. You is
are kind.
You is smart. You is pretty.
Yes. Yeah. When I did the "you are kind," I know I was kind, and so I thought that one was silly. That's an affirmation you don't want to say to yourself because you already know you are, right? But something I struggled with at the time was I didn't think I was beautiful. So me saying that, I thought it was lying to myself, and I thought it was gross and icky. That's how you should be saying that to yourself.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yes, because that's something that you struggle with. Right now, I can go in the mirror and say I am beautiful. It's easy now, but I could do other affirmations that are still really hard for me, and I need to continue saying those because it feels icky and hard because I don't think it's true. It is true, but I don't think it is true, so I need to continue to say those things until I know it's true. So that's why I started with affirmations, and that helped me so much because it started putting myself on the right path of positivity and confidence and feeling better about myself. And then that was making things easier for me to move on and be more present in my siblings' lives and making sure that I'm treating them right. So then I know I wasn't treating them like mom or dad was, right? And so that was something that I started out with was affirmations. Now, as much as I'm doing better now, that was kind of what I was going through back then and how I started. I still do affirmations. Honestly, I think it's a huge thing. That's my biggest thing. I try to take myself, kind of like what you said earlier. It's like you have bills and you're taking care of your mom. There's just so much that you're trying to keep together, and it's so easy to get inside your head. And so my biggest thing is when I feel that way, I shut off everything. I kind of isolate myself, and I think of, okay, is this all in my head? What's important? What are the priorities? What's actually going on right now? Well, bills, I've already paid my bills and I have until next month. So I'm just going to forget about that. Yes, it's a stress, but it's not a current issue at hand. Oh, my mom's feeling sick. I need to take care of her. Okay, I need to put that as a priority and get her some medicine. Problem solved. Now we can check that off. And so kind of taking a step outside of your head and trying to figure out what the actual problem and issue is, I think is huge, and it's hard to do. But that's kind of how I'm dealing with things now.
I like it. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, that was
great.
Cram within 5-10 minutes, but I hope that helps someone out there. That's the biggest goal, especially fathers. It's Happy Father's Day.
It is Happy Father's Day. So if you're dealing with a father wound or you're a father, whether or not if you're a dad trying to break the cycle, or there's no cycle to break, either way,
Positive affirmations.
Positive affirmations,
awesome.
man. Yeah,
You are awesome.
you were awesome.
You are great.
You're doing it. Yes.
Keep up the good work.
Keep up the good work.
You only live today once, so let's make it a good one.
Let's make it a good one.
Let's make this day count.
It is 11:01.
Let me map up where it is.
Okay, good.
And then we can go from there. Because I kind of forgot. I know I have to be in Lenore City, but that's just about it.
Okay. I said I wasn't going to take a musical break, but I am going to take a musical break and play. A friend of mine, Shayla McDaniel, is a musician, singer, songwriter here in Knoxville. And she wrote a song. Her new single deals with imposter syndrome. And I think we could cover that. I think there's a chapter about that in this book. But I think that would be a fun conversation to sort of unpack on the show.
It.
And so I think I'm going to play that song. Pretending for Real is the name of this track by Shayla McDaniel. And we'll be back on the other side. Keep it locked right here to Tea Time with J&J.
Feels like I wear a costume to fool myself into fooling too. Feels like I wear a mask. Am I doing good? It depends who you ask. Am I pretending for real when I do too good to be true? But you believe me, and I want to. Am I pretending for real? Am I as good as I seem? Am I as bad as I think? I see myself through my eyes. Wish I could see through yours sometimes. Am I pretending for real when I do too good to be true? But you believe me, and I want to. Am I pretending for real? Faking it till I make it. Faking it till I make it. Am I pretending for real when I do too good to be true? But you believe me, and I want to. Am I pretending for real?
That's right. We were talking about how we met before during that song. And it was in a real estate class.
It was.
We both are licensed realtors.
Yes,
official.
we are.
With the little R after the thing. Anytime. I don't know if you have an easier way to do that, but we need to cover that off air, maybe.
Okay.
But anytime I'm writing realtor, Janelle Pershing, comma, realtor, or whatever, that little R trademark, I have to go find it. And if I'm in Canva right?
Yeah.
I gotta change a size, and then I want to move the realtor around, right? Or I want to move that text box. So then I gotta move the little R.
I can help
And
you
I'm
with
thinking, there's an easier way. I gotta group these or whatever. So the little R trademark moves like the
I'll
little
help you.
register thing.
that. I gotcha.
So frustrating. Let me just be a real estate agent today, so I don't have to deal with that.
The realtor with the
With the
R.
realtor with the R. You've got to leave in just a few minutes, so wanted to give you the floor to say goodbye to our listeners and any final thoughts that you have for today, and then I'll come back with news and stuff.
Sounds like a plan. Well, I want to say happy Father's Day to all the fathers, soon to be fathers, father figure, and mental health is health. Take care of yourself. It's okay to not be okay. You matter. And if you don't have anyone to talk to, you can feel free to reach out to me. My Instagram is Jocelyn Goins, and I'm happy to help you and point you in the right direction. And just know that you are heard. You're not alone at all. So, peace. What do you say? You say peace, sweet, and chicken grease. What is it?
I say love, peace, and chicken grease.
I love it. I love it. Thank you, Janelle, and I'll see you next weekend.
I'll see you next weekend.
Awesome.
Cool. Okay. Well, I'm going to continue talking about, we're going to get back to our news update. And first things first is sports today in the College World Series. And just to remind folks, the previous champs, College World Series champs, the UT Baseball Volunteers, did not make it back to Omaha this year. They lost to Arkansas in the Fayetteville Super Regional. That was back on June 8th. They lost 11-4. My mom was watching that game last night, and I said, anyhow, long story short, whatever I said, they did not. I said, one of these I told her, one of these teams made it to Omaha, and it wasn't us. And so that was disappointing. I spoiler alerted her. But last night, June 14th, Arkansas played LSU in the College World Series opener. They lost 4-1. Today, the 15th, is our games 5 and 6. Game 5 is Arizona versus Louisville. That happens at 2 p.m. And then I was going to say kicks off, but it's not kickoff. You know what I mean? And then game 6 is at 7 p.m. tonight. It's Coastal Carolina versus Oregon State. In the NBA final news, the series is tied by Jay. The series is tied 2-2 between the Indiana Pacers and Oklahoma City. Game 4 was a thriller. Game 4 was Friday night. OKC overcame a 10-point deficit to win 111-104, powered by 35 points from Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, including 15 points just in the final 4 minutes and 38 seconds. The win evened the series to 2-2, shifting home court momentum back to OKC. Both teams are young, fast, and ahead of schedule, man. Neither was a favorite to reach the finals preseason, and the momentum keeps flipping, right? Every game feels like a little mini soap opera. The next games coming up are Monday, June 16th, Game 5. It's at 8:30 p.m. Eastern in OKC. It's this pivotal clash as the home team looks to swing the series 3-2. Game 6 would be Thursday, June 19th at 8:30 p.m. in Indiana. And then, if needed, Game 7, Sunday, June 22nd in OKC at 8 p.m. Eastern. And it's suddenly anybody's series. Game 5 on Monday will be huge. Indiana rallied from a 15-point deficit to snatch Game 1 with Halliburton's buzzer beater, and OKC responded by dominating Game 2. The Pacers took Game 3, grabbing a 2-1 lead before OKC answered back in Game 4. There were some little nuggets. I was asking ChatGPT about when the last time was OKC won a title. OKC is chasing its first title since 1979 as the Seattle Supersonics. Indiana is seeking its first ever NBA championship. And both franchises could kickstart a new dynasty with this young core of awesome players. So that is NBA news. Also happening this past week, Friday evening, Bonnaroo Music and Arts Festival in Manchester, Tennessee was canceled officially for severe weather. And let's talk about that. The festival kicked off on Thursday or even late Wednesday night. Festival goers were on scene listening to music, but by Friday afternoon, heavy storms and downpours had forced evacuation of Centeroo at 1:30 p.m. Central Time. Manchester is there in the Central Time Zone in Tennessee, and texts that I was getting from the festival were saying, we're asking festival goers to get in their vehicles and just sort of take cover. If you didn't have a vehicle or you rode with somebody else, they were saying find a friend, but just get inside a vehicle. And then later that afternoon into the early evening, they just put out a statement and then followed it up with an Instagram post that said they were pummeled, they were just gutted, but they were going to have to cancel the festival altogether. Refunds were offered, a full refund on single day tickets, 75% on the 4-day packages, and I'm sure you can get on the website if you're if you're a listener that is looking for a refund or something like that. I'm sure there are mechanisms to get that taken care of for you. But feel free to message me if you need any help with that. I can point you in the right direction. Oh, I was asking again, ChatGPT. I was asking, okay, I know there was one year where it was just hellacious mud. Just the entire farm was just covered in mud. Folks were losing their shoes with just reckless abandon. Like the earth was just sucking them up, like something out of Poltergeist or what have you, right? In that scene where like the pool turns into the graveyard. 2021, Bonnaroo was postponed from summer to September due to COVID and then canceled days ahead when grounds flooded from Hurricane Ida. Okay, I kind of remember that. Organizers said fields, brooks, and parking areas were too soaked to be safe. And then the classic mud years, 2009, thunderstorms hit early and often, hail, lightning, flash floods. The mud was epic. Some fans danced in it. Others struggled to the stages. I think that was the one where folks were losing their shoes. 2005, rain again plagued the festival, though it stayed open. Rainy days became part of the culture. Yoga in the mud, surprisingly zen. 2004, torrential June rains turned the farm into mud fields. Over 90,000 attendees waded through muck among many vehicles that needed towing. Founded in 2002 on a former hotspot festival site outside Nashville, the name Bonnaroo means a really good time in Creole. It's inspired by New Orleans musician Dr. John's album, Decisively Bonnaroo. So those are some trivia nuggets for you. Oh, here's a couple others. I was listening to Beastie Boys on the way here, and I guess ChatGPT picked up on it because it said Beastie Boys' final performance was at the festival and was at Bonnaroo in 2009. I don't think I went in 2009. I think the first time I went was in 2010 or 11. And then I went back to back for like 3 years. So it was either 10, 11, and 12 or 11, 12, and 13. I think it was 10, 11, and 12 is when I went. And I haven't been back. I haven't been back since. I did the general camping. I did the media camping, which was much nicer, and separate showers and bathrooms that Porta Johns type thing. And that was favorable over the first year I took my own little, I took a bucket with these like whatever little tabs, like little Porta-John tabs absorb the whatever, and then you could put it in the compost bin. Anyhow, I'm just not a fan of Porta-Johns, man. Like, I tried doing it during the festival that first year. Just the real public ones that were getting used in lines waiting to use the Porta-Johns, and they were just overflowing, and it was yuck. So, I'm a bougie camper, unfortunately or fortunately. Let's see. Other iconic moments from everybody remembers Kanye's notorious 2008 set, running to the early hours of the next morning because he didn't show up until late, or early, as it were. And then D'Angelo's surprise 2012 Super Jam with his return after 12 years. So that's pretty cool. What else happened? Oh, so I wanted to talk just about the protest and the parade. I asked ChatGPT to tell me how many folks participated nationwide and in Knoxville. And these are some of the notes that it gave me. And it was Saturday's No Kings protest. So the No Kings Day is what the organizers were calling it. It wasn't just about a military parade, but a full-throated rebuke of Trump and his policies, with concerns ranging from presidential power to social spending. I said, were they actually protesting the parade? As one guy I was talking to was saying last week, he said, I just don't think it's right to protest the military. Well, I think it's bigger than that, and I think it's sort of myopic to just assume that all these folks out here with signs are simply there because they don't like the military. We're talking about two completely separate things. The nationwide protests, branded No Kings, weren't opposing the celebration of the U.S. Army itself, but rather President Trump's expanded authority and political style. While many recognize the parade as a commemoration of the 250th anniversary of the Army, the demonstrations were primarily focused on Trump's perceived authoritarianism, his domestic policies like immigration, his court defiance, the symbolism of militarism on public ground. Nationwide, over 2,000 demonstrations took place in all 50 states. Reuters noted that hundreds of thousands participated, while The Guardian estimated millions across 2,100 events with over 5 million participants. Knoxville, Tennessee, it's reported that around 7,500 people took to downtown streets, and they're set up there at Summit Hill, Western, and Henley. Or Broadway turns into Henley, and Western turns into Summit Hill, and then all just spreading out. I mean, 7,500 people went in every direction. 7,500 took to downtown streets. The vibe was largely peaceful. There were seated and walking demonstrations. Veterans, democracy advocates, and families participated. Folks were there with their kids. It was peaceful. I had asked ChatGPT if there was any. I know in LA there was some kerfuffle and some pushback with police. And so it said about that, it was mostly calm, though police did deploy tear gas and flashbangs in LA, and they used force in Portland and Seattle. In LA, tensions ran higher with law enforcement confrontation. In Portland, drivers struck some protesters. I don't know how, or I haven't followed up to see how many or if anybody was fatally wounded or what have you. But no significant rioting, looting, or murder tied to the protests occurred Saturday. The Minnesota shootings occurred separately and were politically motivated, but not at these rallies. And then I was asking about seated protests and in other places. They said, yes, some were seated as organizers aimed for calm, symbolic, and family-friendly demonstrations. Some posts I was reading on Facebook ahead of the event were talking about organizers having information that folks, what do you call them? That what's the word? Not outliers. I can't think of it on the fly, but folks that were coming to sort of to incite sort of violence or whatever were going to be on scene. So everybody needed to just be chill, not get razzed up, or not, if somebody was around you trying to stir something up, just to sit down. Or find an organizer or alert an organizer or whatever. Just make sure that you were not part of that fray, that you were separate from whatever that person was doing or whatever, because this was to be a peaceful protest, as is our right as Americans, and that it wasn't meant to be some sort of sparring match or with law enforcement and so on. I thought that was good. I thought that was all good information. Trump's response this weekend, I had asked ChatGPT. I was on Truth Social, but I just sometimes it causes me too much anxiety sometimes to follow everything that this administration does and says, because it's just utter chaos and asininary, and I can't handle it in full measure. And so I asked ChatGPT if Trump had any retorts or quips or obnoxious sentiments or praise for the protests, or just understanding that it wasn't toward the military itself and it was more toward him ahead of the parade. And so ChatGPT says, well, ahead of the parade, Trump warned protesters that they would be met with very heavy force. I remember seeing that post. If they had, or whatever he said, if they attempted to interfere, but so far no fresh weakened statements, threats, or direct taunts beyond that pre-event posture. And it's just sort of like, well, let me tell you about what I saw, and then I'll get back to my opinion on it. Reports pegged the parade's cost between 25 and 45 million, with some citing as high as 45 million to 69 million. Critics argue that money could bolster Medicaid among pressured social programs. Indeed, the Trump administration and GOP have repeatedly proposed cuts to Medicaid and other health programs independent of the parade spending. And the federal deficit remains a concern. Wasteful spending, often flagged in discretionary areas like defense overages, visa processing inefficiencies, bureaucratic overhead, or even large projects like grand parades. Reallocating $30 to $50 million is minor at the federal level. $30 to $50 million as a piece of the overall budget, not the deficit, but the budget that we have to work with, right? Is less than 0.001% of the overall $1 trillion discretionary budget, but could fund several hundreds of thousands of Medicaid beneficiaries or keep community clinics afloat. So we recognize that. We recognize that $30 to $50 million is a drop in the bucket of what is being spent by the administration. And we're talking about this current administration, right? It's no use to, at this point in the game, say, well, Biden spent this or Biden did that. Biden's not in office. So that can no longer be part of the conversation. The conversation is around the current administration. And yes, I understand Biden was not completely above board either. What billionaire that we've had in office has been completely above board? What administration at all is completely above board? What administration ever has not had some level of waste or stupid spending, right? I mean, it's like peas and carrots, man. You can't have one without the other. You can't have a billionaire in office without them getting power hungry or finding loopholes to make themselves richer. I mean, it's like unheard of, right? I guess we're human. To err is human. And so I guess the billionaire blueprint is just to be as miserly with your own money and always spend other people's money, right? I mean, that seems like what it's like. But this current administration is the Trump administration, and that there are 1,001 ways to Sunday that they could cut $40 million to fund Medicaid. They could cut that from other areas of the budget. Like I was talking to Jocelyn earlier, something mundane, something that would not be missed. You don't need to lay off thousands of federal employees. Absolutely, if this administration wanted to fund Medicaid, they could find the funds. And it's not the same money. They could still have a parade and Medicaid at the same time, right? It's not one or the other. Well, because we had a parade, suddenly Medicaid is on the chopping block. No, Medicaid is on the chopping block because this administration actively chose not to fund it, to take away funds from the program. Period. I mean, I'm going to go to Target later and I'm going to buy something. That doesn't mean that I suddenly don't have money to pay my KUB bill. It's two separate pots. I have discretionary funds and I have bill money, and the bill money will continue to pay the bills, and the discretionary funds will be spent on a variety of different things. And today it's going to be potentially something at Target. I don't even remember what I needed at Target. I don't even know if I should be shopping at Target. I mean, do we hate Target these days? Do we not hate Target? We don't like Target because of the DEI decisions they made, but it's so much. The political sort of insight during the Biden administration. I obviously did not listen to the news and look at Truth Social, look at different posts, look into different information about the budget, do any sort of research, watch C-SPAN, follow any of these programs that I've been watching with just vehement attention that I am in the Trump administration, because I think I was, if it ain't broke, don't fix it sort of mentality. What I don't know can't hurt me sort of mentality. Just complacent. I know I was complacent during the Biden years, and I didn't think anything really was going wrong or was that bad. And so that's on me. Right. But since I am so vehemently opposed to Trump and the way he speaks to people, the way he speaks about people, just the violent rhetoric that he incites, and that he won't take any credit. He'll take all the credit until he's to be blamed for something he absolutely did. And then, well, that wasn't me. Well, yeah, I can't stand it. I just can't stand him. And it's a rant. And so I am just like all eyes on news stories and what's happening and what are they spending money on and what are you doing with my tax dollars and so on and so forth. And I am no longer complacent. And if that is the positive that comes out of this administration, then so be it. My eyes are wide open and I'm watching you, buddy. So I guess that's the positive that I can tell my husband when he says, give me one positive about this administration, whenever I'm just completely calling them out. And I always say, well, I always come up with another negative. So that can be the positive. Let's move along to other news stories, shall we? That was my political rant. And we talked about Trump trial fallout. Here we go. Legal analysts continue speculating on sentencing guidelines. There are possible appeal paths that are being explored. The Federal Reserve held rates steady again this week. Mortgage rates still hover right around 6.7% to 7%, but buyers seem cautiously re-entering the market. Severe weather updates across the country. Tornadoes hit parts of Iowa and Kansas this week. Damage assessments are ongoing. There's a heat dome over much of the southern U.S., including Knoxville. We're hitting highs in the 90s. We talked about Father's Day spending is up. The National Retail Federation predicted $22.4 billion in Father's Day spending. Most popular gifts are experiences and gift cards. And mental health legislation happening in several states as they push for stronger mental health funding bills post-COVID, with specific attention to male suicide rates rising. It says only 1 in 3 men who struggle with mental health seek professional help. And men are 3 to 4 times more likely to die by suicide than women. It sounds like men are having a tough go of things. And I don't think we should take our hatred out for one man or a group of men in particular and spew that energy toward all men. I think we need to be kind always, no matter what rhetoric is being pushed our way. I think if we just always err on the side of kindness first, understanding first, empathy first, I think we're gonna get along okay. And no matter what the future holds for our country or for our family or for ourselves, I think, need to push the positive and just kind and gentle with one another. What other news stories? Did I have anything? Oh, so I was in the sort of real estate corner that we tried to incorporate into every show because Joss and I are both real estate agents, licensed real estate agents. I always like to look at something with that real estate sort of mind. This week, I wanted to talk a little bit about flooring trends. Flooring trends as it relates to feet health. And ever since we moved into this new house of ours, we moved in 2022, I have been having sometimes severe foot pain. I went to an orthopedic doctor and he told me it was low-grade plantar fasciitis. Am I saying that right? Plantar fasciitis. He asked me what kind of floors I had in my home and at my office. And at that point in time, I was working in an old home that had been converted to office space, and it had original hardwood floors. And then my own floor at home is hardwood flooring and tile on cement slab. And so that is the leading hard flooring, like hardwoods and ceramic tile on cement slab, is one of the leading causes of foot issues like plantar fasciitis. Luxury vinyl plank is continuing to dominate the market because of its durability, affordability, and stylish aesthetic. Hard flooring is replacing carpet, though, in most new builds and flips. And we've seen that. We've seen the emergence of hard flooring as opposed to carpet in the past 20 years, this sort of movement away from carpet, just because of the germs and the pet dander and all of the things that can get trapped in those carpet fibers versus hard flooring is easier to clean and maintain and is not as susceptible to spills and stains as carpet is. And for the money, especially if you're flipping it for a rental, the smart choice always seems to be to go with a harder flooring versus carpet, just for the ease of cleaning and turning it for new renters and such. And so again, luxury vinyl plank, a lot of luxury vinyl has this backing on it, like this sort of rubberized backing or pad that does have some shock absorption when you walk on it. And so we too, in our kitchen remodel project, are redoing a portion of our floor in our kitchen and down the hallway. And we've already bought the luxury vinyl plank. It looks like stone. It has that stone look that I think is really cool. And it's like a 22 mil layer, which means essentially like the wearability of it. And then in addition, it's got this rubber sort of padding on it that will help with shock absorption as you're walking on it. And even if you're walking in slippers, let alone bare feet is the worst to walk around on hard floors. But even if you're wearing slippers or what have you, I think that extra padding, even just a little bit, is really going to help. So I'm kind of excited to get my new floors and walk about on it for a few months and see if I notice any reduction in the amount of pain that I get in my feet. And sometimes it's the middle of the night, I'll get up to use the washroom or what have you, and I have to just sort of sit on the edge of my bed for a second because my feet hurt so much, especially sort of my arches and my heels just sort of ache. And, if I had to get up and run out of the house, I would stumble and fall down because the pain is sort of that intense. And so, Speaking of, foot health research that I found, The human foot has 26 bones, 33 joints, and 100 plus muscles, tendons, and ligaments. 26 bones, 33 joints, and 100 plus muscles in just the human foot, just one foot. So that flooring without any give just creates this repetitive impact force. And plantar fasciitis is just one thing: joint pain, knee issues, hip issues. In 2021, there was a study in the Journal of Foot and Ankle Research that found significant increases in foot pain that correlated with that long-term standing on hard floors. And since 1995, podiatry visits for heel pain have increased by approximately 60% as more homes shift to harder flooring types. Wow. So that's the little nugget of real estate and health crossover. I appreciate you tuning in to Tea Time with J and J this week, and we'll get this podcast episode up wherever you find your favorite podcasts, on Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio. So I've been working on that. I have one episode up already, and soon to be 2 or 3. Once I have a few more episodes up, maybe with some guests as well, some experts, field experts on different things, I will just shout it out everywhere on all the social media outlets. I just don't want to just yet. I want to get just a few more episodes for you all to fully chew on. Thank you all again for listening. And I want to encourage you to tune in next week as Jocelyn and I do it again right here on Tea Time. And it's TEATHYME. Why? Because I talk about my plants all the time, and I grow thyme, and it's more easily findable too on your podcast apps. So it's Tea Time, THYME, with J and J. And have a happy rest of your Sunday. Happy Father's Day to all you guys out there. And we love and appreciate you. Love, peace, and chicken grease. Thanks so much for tuning in.